The Red Raiders look to stay hot and in first place in the Big 12 as they travel east to the metroplex to face off against Jamie Dixon and the TCU Horned Frogs. In today's video, we'll set the scene, give you the must-watch players for both squads, the odds and predictions for this Big 12 matchup. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxwell here for the Back to 12 podcast. And if you want to join the most engaging Texas Tech community here on YouTube and the fastest growing, hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on Texas Tech men's basketball all year long. Looks like this could be a fun March Madness run for the Red Raiders, and you're going to want to stay in the know and be a part of the most engaging group of Texas Tech fans on YouTube. And the easiest way to do that, like the video, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. All right, before we set the scene for this one, let me know your score prediction on the pinned comment down below for number 20 Texas Tech at TCU. Again, kind of a home away from home, even though we'll talk about it here in just a second. Texas Tech has stumbled the past couple times they've been in Fort Worth, but you know Red Raider Nation is going to show out there in Fort Worth. But let me know your score prediction down below in the comments. All right. You see it right there, Schollmaier Arena. That's where this one will take place in Fort Worth. Tip-off is scheduled for 6 p.m. Central Time on ESPN2. You got Rich Hollenberg on the play-by-play. Now, some other things you need to know about this one for Texas Tech and TCU. The history of this matchup, Texas Tech actually leads the all-time series 86-55 over the Horned Frogs. Now, the series is even, however, in Fort Worth at 33 apiece. The Horned Frogs have actually won 3 straight in this series after sweeping the Red Raiders last season. As we all know, last year was not a bright spot for the Red Raiders on a multitude of fronts. But Texas Tech has won 6 of the last 10 overall against TCU, even with that 3-game losing streak involved in it. Texas Tech, coming into this one, has 2 games in a row where they have scored 50-plus points in the second half against their opponent. One time at home against number 20 BYU at the time, and then on the road this past Saturday against number 11 Oklahoma, where they scored 53 and 52 points respectively. Now, TCU is coming off arguably the most thrilling Big 12 game so far in the regular season, a triple overtime thriller down in Waco, where the camera angle there looks like you're getting an angle from the heavens. I mean, it is, you're going to have to figure that one out, Baylor. Anyway, they beat number 14 Baylor, did the Horned Frogs in that one. Now, KenPom in this one has TCU in front. The 23rd ranked team in the country are the Horned Frogs, according to KenPom. Texas Tech comes in at 26th. You look at the net, though, it's flipped. Texas Tech is 26th in this one. TCU is 30th. So a pretty even matchup here if you look at it from the advanced metrics aspect of it, but very different in the sense of the Big 12 standings, where Texas Tech right now currently stands alone as the only one-loss team in the Big 12 coming into this matchup at 5-1. Now, some of the players to watch in this one, we'll start with Texas Tech. You got to start with Pop Isaacs, one of the leading scorers in the Big 12 right now. A guy that has really developed his game from a leadership standpoint and also just an efficiency standpoint. Listen, there's going to be games where Pop Isaacs struggles from shooting, and a perfect example is the Oklahoma game. 1 of 6 from 3, but he still got it done, was the second leading scorer for the Red Raiders, and was an efficient playmaker and got other Red Raiders in a really good spot to succeed. Prime example, Chance McMillan. I look forward to seeing what Pop Isaacs does against a really solid TCU defense and a team that isn't afraid to throw different looks at guards, including a guy that we'll talk about in terms of a must-watch player here in just a second for the Horned Frogs, and a former Red Raider in Micah Peavy. But I'm really interested to see what Pop does. I think he'll shoot better in this one. He likes shooting there at TCU. Texas Tech last year had a chance to win that game, but then inevitably lost a sizable lead in the first Big 12 matchup of the year for the Red Raiders. They'll look to get revenge, and Pop Isaacs knows that feeling well and doesn't want to have it again, leaving Schollmaier. Now, got to talk about Warren Washington in this one, because when you look at TCU, they really only have one big, and it's a transfer in there from Kansas, and Ernest Uday Jr., and he's a good big, no doubt about it, but they're in a similar spot as Texas Tech in the sense of they have one traditional big, and then they got a guys that they can just mix and match, right? Warren Washington has a chance to potentially thrive in this one, not only on the boards, but passing. I would not be surprised whatsoever if you see Warren Washington at the top of the key, and then you just see a bunch of Red Raiders spaced out, cutting baseline, cutting from the arc, whatever it is, towards the rim. That way, there's no real rim threat there for TCU because, again, Warren Washington, one of his underrated skills is passing. I think you see quite a bit of that in this one for the Red Raiders. Now, got to talk about Chance McMillan. Got to give him his shine. Again, a career high in points, 27 at Oklahoma in this last game. Do I think he's going to have 27 against the Horned Frogs? No. But I do think Chance McMillan is interesting from his athleticism standpoint in this one because you look at what the Horned Frogs present, they have quite a bit of really just size and athletes on the perimeter outside of really their two guards in Avery Anderson and Jameer Nelson Jr. Everybody else is pretty lengthy. His athleticism, Chance McMillan, albeit he's only 6'3", makes up for his height. And I'm interested to see what he does from an athleticism standpoint. And we know he's a knockdown shooter, shooting plus 40% from three. But that's really what I'm looking for Chance McMillan. Bring that athleticism and throw different looks at TCU, both on the offensive and defensive end. Now, players to watch for TCU, you have to start with Emmanuel Miller. He's a pro. I mean, he's a pro. 16.8 points per game, leads the Horned Frogs there, and also leads the Horned Frogs in rebounds with 6 per game. I don't know any other way to say it than he's an absolute bucket. He's a pro. He can beat you on both ends, but offensively, he's just one of those guys where if you don't know where he's at all times, good luck to you. He's the guy that Texas Tech is going to pinpoint in terms of who can beat us. And it's going to be Emmanuel Miller. Okay, that's the guy that you have to know where he's at all times. A guy that's really stepped up and really makes me feel old talking about him is Jameer Nelson Jr. Reason being, I used to be a huge fan of his father when he played down with Orlando with the Dwight Howard. And now here he is absolutely balling out at the Big 12 level. He's averaging 11.4 points per game. J&J is one of those guys that's becoming one of those lead guards for the Horned Frogs alongside Avery Anderson III. He is a guy that will absolutely annihilate you in the pick and roll type setting if you aren't careful. Texas Tech has gotten better at the pick and roll, specifically the defensive side of it. I expect that to be a fun matchup. I think Joe Toussaint will be matched up against Jameer Nelson Jr. Now, I mentioned him earlier, former Red Raider Micah Peavy. He's having a career year for the Horned Frogs. Averaging 11.3 points per game, 5 rebounds, just short of 3 assists, but he's also averaging 1.3 steals per game. He's still an elite defender. Red Raider fans probably remember him back in the year when Jamias Ramsey was on campus as well. He's an elite defender, and his offensive game has improved a little bit in terms of his aggressiveness and body control, but he still isn't that great of a shooter. That said, he's better than he was back then, but he is a guy that you have to know where he's at defensively at all times because he can just create havoc. You know, he can be guarding, for example, let's just say he's guarding Kerwin Walton. He can be guarding Kerwin Walton. The next second, he's on pop, double teaming and just absolutely wreaking havoc. And then before you know it, he's on the other end with a layup. He's that kind of guy. So really interested to see who he's guarding in this one. Maybe Darian. I'm not sure exactly where they go on that front, but he's an elite defender for the Horned Frogs. There's no doubt about it. All right, the must-watch matchup in this one, I mentioned him earlier. It's Warren Washington versus the TCU Bigs. I truly believe Warren Washington can dominate this basketball game, whether that's from the top of the key, whether that's on the block, whether that's on the boards, his passing ability, scoring ability, whatever it is, in the pick and roll, lob threat, multiple ways to do it. If he stays out of foul trouble, this could be a game where Warren Washington just absolutely obliterates the TCU Horned Frogs. Now, there's a lot more that goes into it, and we know Jamie Dixon is a hell of a coach there. Also acts as a sixth man sometimes. Had to get that joke in there. I had to. But Warren Washington, this could be a game for him where he goes in there and gets another double-double in the scarlet and black and really, truly makes an impact on both sides of the floor for the Red Raiders, for them to potentially leave with another W on the road in Big 12 play. All right, according to the odds, Bart Torvark has TCU favored by 2.5 points in this one, and his metrics give TCU a 60% chance to win this game. I don't give a damn. I'm picking the Red Raiders once again on the road in the Big 12 by a score of 77-72. I think right now, Texas Tech is a top 3 team in the Big 12. That is not up for debate. And you could argue that they have the best offense in the Big 12 going right now. Listen, I get it. They struggle in the first half. They got to chill out on that. But in the second half, again, I mentioned it earlier, 250-plus point second halves for the Red Raiders against two teams that were ranked quite highly when it came to defense, specifically BYU. I think TCU is a notch, maybe even 2 below BYU defensively. I think Texas Tech gets back on track in Fort Worth after losing 3 straight there at Schollmaier Arena, and they leave the Metroplex with a 77-72 victory. That's my prediction. Now I want to hear you guys' down on the pinned comment below. Let me know your score prediction for number 20 Texas Tech at TCU. And yeah, there will be an update in terms of the rankings. I expect Texas Tech to be higher than 20th, but at the time of this recording, they are still the number 20 team in the country. You don't care about that. Let me know your score prediction down on the pinned comment below. And if you haven't already, be sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to stay in the know on not only Texas Tech men's basketball all year, Texas Tech football all year as well, right here on the most engaging Texas Tech community on YouTube. Of course, talking about the Back to 12 podcast channel.